So I'd like to share some words today, but before I do that, I just want to pay respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sangham namasami. So, I'd like to say a few words about foolish people and wise people, and the Buddha's guidance around the understanding of karma, the understanding of why things happen, why good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people, and how we can make sense of that, and how we can cope with observing and feeling the effects of injustice in the world, the unfairness of the way things are, the way things seem to be. Because for me, this is quite a sort of ever-relevant theme, and like probably many of you, I occasionally look at the news. A lot of people read the news every day, and it can be quite disturbing and upsetting. A lot of the news we hear, of course, is the not good news, is about the traumatic and difficult and painful things that are happening for other people. And it's quite natural to wonder why, how could this happen? And also to feel a sense of outrage, sometimes a sense of wanting to put things right and, sort of see things happening in different ways, wish to change the way things are happening, to get involved. And that can be very skillful. But first, we need to perhaps understand how things happen the way they do. And I want to talk about a sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, which is Sutta 129. It's called Bala Pandita Sutta. Bala means foolish person or people, and Pandita means wise ones, wise people. And so this sutta is all about, what distinguishes the foolish from the wise, and what is it like actually to be in either category. And it's really, I find, helpful in terms of making sense of, or rather coping with, dealing with the feelings that can arise when we hear about terrible things happening to good people, and vice versa. And first of all, I should say that in a sense we can say there are no good people or terrible people, bad people or wonderful people. Actually, it's just cause and effect. There's just qualities that are skillful and unskillful. And it's really helpful to separate out the reality, to let go of the sense of personhood, individuals, and to see the world in terms of these qualities. This is a wiser way of looking and a more easeful way of viewing the world around us, and also the world within us, also ourselves as struggling human beings, working to try to purify our hearts, making mistakes sometimes, rather than blaming ourselves, for difficult mind states and sometimes unskillful behaviors, speech, action. we can see the qualities and recognize that we want to not give too much energy, not to give attention to developing unwholesome qualities, but to develop the wholesome and let go of the unwholesome. Grow goodness, let go of that which is unskillful, that's harmful, that's painful for us and for others. And so in this light, the Buddha's talking about the foolish and the wise, foolish qualities and wise qualities. And in this sutta, he doesn't really mince words. And I actually find this helpful. I find this supportive, that the Buddha speaks very plainly, very clearly, not afraid to speak directly to the way things are. And he describes the three experiences of a foolish person or foolish behaviors, and the three consequences, say, of wise behaviors, the three experiences of wise people, people who cultivate the good. And it sort of goes without saying that foolish people are people who do unwholesome deeds, harmful things, say harmful words. People who cause harm to themselves and to others. And a wise person, wise action, wise understanding is to do good, to do the wholesome, to abstain from the unwholesome. And for Buddhist practitioners, we're all aware there are these 5 precepts, and they pretty much cover all the bases in terms of wholesome and unwholesome behavior and speech. So a fool, the Buddha said, is one who kills, who steals, who commits sexual misconduct, who lies, speaks harshly, speaks harmfully, and someone who takes intoxicants and drugs that create the causes for carelessness. And a wise person is a person who abstains from these things, who's careful, to avoid harmful behavior, harmful speech. And in this sutta, the Buddha says, the foolish person has 3 experiences. The first experience is that when they're around other people, they feel uneasy, they feel uncomfortable, ill at ease. The second experience of a foolish person is that when they're relaxing, when they're on their own, during quiet times, inactive times, they feel agitated. They feel a sense of doom and gloom. They feel uneasy. And whatever their belief systems, they have a sense that they're heading for a future where there'll be suffering for them. They're frightened to think ahead. They have a sense that they're heading for a bad destination. So these 3 experiences are the experiences of someone who harms others or harms themselves in different ways. And I find it really powerful teaching to really consider this, considering how, the people around us are like mirrors for us, aren't they? And I notice myself, when I'm pleased with my own behavior, my own speech, when I feel I'm doing my best, to avoid any kind of harm, and I'm actually doing reasonably okay, then I feel that the people around me are my friends. I feel at ease with the people around me. I feel like I can speak in public, and what I say is likely to be heard, and it's likely to be acceptable to the people around me. On the other hand, if I've done something that I'm not pleased about, that I feel remorseful around, that I wish I hadn't said, I hadn't done, I regret, then I notice something interesting happens, which is that I kind of project that feeling of unease onto the people around me. And I can feel uncomfortable around other people. I can feel as if they might be judging me. They may be seeing what an unskillful person I am. And I've actually experienced this a number of times. When I experience this, I can recognize now that it's usually because there's agitation in the mind because of some sense of wrongdoing. There's remorse. There's a feeling of being ill at ease. This isn't necessarily then a bad thing. It's just a sign. It's hiriotapa, it's a sense of shame and moral dread, a sense of having a need to put things right within, to first of all maybe forgive myself for having done something unskillful, but to make amends if I can, and to avoid doing this kind of unskillful speech or behavior in the future. So this sort of really speaks to me. It speaks to my own experience and the kind of crucial necessity for all of us to really be careful and work to refine our behavior and our speech. And for me, it's a work in progress. And I think for all of us, there's always scope. There's always room to look at this, look at how I'm manifesting in the world, look at how we're treating others, look at how we're treating ourselves, and see if we can bring in some more kindness, some more compassion, and see where we might be needing to kind of redirect our behaviors in more skillful ways. The Buddha went on to speak about the wise person and the three experiences of a wise person. And like I touched upon just now, a wise person is doing good, is doing their best to cultivate the good, to avoid harm. And when they're in the company of other people, they generally feel at ease. They can stand tall, they can feel they belong. They can feel that they have a right to be part of the group, that they can contribute, that they're an upstanding citizen. The second experience is that when they're relaxing, resting at night, going to bed, waking up in the morning, in their quiet times, when the mind will naturally start to reflect, they feel good. They feel okay. They feel relaxed. They have peace. And when they think ahead, whatever they believe about rebirth or the afterlife, what happens to them after death, or what happens to them in the next moment, or next week, or next year, their sense of the future is bright. It's not frightening. It's okay. They feel that they're heading in a good direction. So the opposite, of course, of the fool. And this is really hugely significant for us, isn't it? Because whatever we do, whatever karma we make, whatever that is, intentional speech or action, we perform, we manifest, then we have the results. We have the results here and now in a sense of well-being or a sense of not so well-being. And we have the results in all that we do, in all our quiet moments, in all our interactions with other people, and in our sense of the future. The same applies. So it's huge, really. It's huge. The peace of mind that we can experience when we keep precepts and we strive to do good, avoid harm. And the results of unskillful behavior, for people who are not able, aware, in a position to know how to live skillfully. And one thing that I really take on board from this teaching is that when we witness the unskillful behaviors of people around us, or we hear about really cruel and harmful behaviors that are happening in the world around us, actually, if we see clearly, we can see that these qualities, these very painful happenings, have their results. And the need to seek justice is quite natural, perhaps, for us, but we don't really need to be concerned about that. Rather, recognize that unskillful behavior, cruelty, unkindness, harm and hurt, they immediately impact anyone who has these harmful intentions. And not only that, not only do they suffer immediately the consequences of their cruel or unskillful behavior, but also they cannot rest at ease. They can't relax without the mind throwing back at them the consequences of their cruel, unskillful deeds. And in the future, the trajectory for such people, very unhappy one. The Buddha said that it was impossible to give a simile to describe the sufferings of the lower realms when one has behaved in a very harmful way in a human lifetime. The trajectory is down, it's a downward spiral. And the Buddha was pressed to give a simile to describe the lower realms, what it's like to find oneself falling from the human realm into a lower realm. And he said it's like a person being beaten with 100 spears in the morning, again in the afternoon, and again in the evening. But actually, he said that's nothing compared to the sufferings in the hellish realms, in the lower realms. He said he picked up a stone in this sutta that I'm just talking about. The Buddha picked up a stone and he said to the people around him, which is greater, the stone in my hand or the entire planet Earth? And they said, well, of course, the planet Earth is so much greater than the little tiny pebble in your hand. And he said, in the same way, this description of a person being beaten with 100 spears, morning, afternoon, and evening, is just like this small pebble in my hand, compared to the sufferings of people in the hell realms, of beings who have acted cruelly, who have harmed and hurt others in this life. And it's pretty powerful to reflect upon this. It helps me to understand the urgency, the importance for us to not stoop, not get enmeshed or involved in harmful actions for any reason whatsoever. And we can't necessarily predict what experiences we're going to have in this lifetime, what may come our way. We can see, looking around the world, that there are people who get caught up in very terrible situations of great harm, great hurt, violence, even death, through war, through famine, through, very painful chains, causes and conditions, cascading effects around them. And, it doesn't, none of this seems to make sense to us on a superficial level, but we can accept as practitioners ourselves that whatever comes our way, there'll be some past cause for that. It's not my fault if something terrible happens to me, but there will be some reason for that. The most important thing that I can do is not to make it worse through unskillful intention. Not to reciprocate if somebody harms me, not to go down the same road, rather to make peace with the situation, to be willing to bear the suffering and let it stop here. Don't let it go any further. Don't react, don't retaliate. And for me, this sort of really kind of brings home the clarity around this necessity for us, that it's never in our interest. It's never in the interest of the wider field for us to add harm and hurt, unskillful behaviors, unskillful speech into the field. And it's a tall order sometimes, for sure. But understanding these laws of karma, the consequences of actions and speech that's skillful or unskillful, it really, for me, helps to step back from the complexity of samsara, the confusing nature of the world around us, and just come home to this experience here and this journey and the place of agency, the place where we have the power, the ability to turn things around, to make good. In this sutta, the Buddha also described the animal realm, saying that people who, with intention, speak or act in harmful ways, consistently through their life, inevitably will fall from the human state. And he described all the different ways in which beings live in the animal realm, and how very difficult, how very rare it is for a being in the animal realm to be able to come back as a human being. The simile of the turtle, the one-eyed turtle, which many of you will know. The chance of a one-eyed turtle swimming around the ocean, putting its head through a ring that's floating on the surface of the ocean, and it lifts its head, it comes out, pops its head out of the waves once every 100 years. The chance of that turtle hitting, getting its head in the inside of the ring that's floating on the ocean, that's the kind of odds for us to manage to scrabble back up from the animal realm to the human realm. Again, it's powerful, urgent, sense of how crucial it is to make the most of this lifetime, to make the most of this opportunity, recognizing this is a rare and precious opportunity for us, to be have the ability as human beings to practice the Dhamma. The Buddha said, in the animal realm, that's just not possible. This is a place, a situation, the animal realm, of devouring, being devoured or devouring others. That is the obsession. That is the kind of what takes up all the life energy in the animal realm. And he said, It's a place where the weak are slaughtered by the strong. One eats or one is eaten. When I put my mind there, when I really consider what that is like, how that would be, when I look around actually and see, the birds, we have the birds in the garden here, we have squirrels here running around, and we have wild animals out in the bush not very far from here. And that is the case. That is the case for all of them. They are constantly having to get, the necessities of life, the food they need to survive. It takes up all their time. And there's always the fear that they may become prey for another being. And even the ones that are big vegetarian beings, the bears and the elk, the deer, they can be prey, but also, even if they are not too endangered themselves, they have to keep finding food. They have to keep seeking. They're driven by hunger. And when they lose their strength, when they become older, when they get injured in any way, when they're not capable of getting what they need, then how terrible is that? There's no welfare system. There's no safety net. There's not much support from their community around them. Oh my goodness. How difficult, how painful, how frightening. So, to really take in these teachings, and the Buddha gave many, many teachings about the consequences of our actions. And it's important, as I said at the beginning, to recognize that we don't really want to take personally the laws of karma, but we have agency. What I mean is, we don't have to blame and judge ourselves for bad things happening, difficult things happening to us. It's a waste of time. It's meaningless to do that. But what we can do is we can know how to relate to difficult situations, painful happenings. Instead of taking ourselves to be a victim and blaming perpetrators and seeking revenge, again, these things are not the best use of our time. And not only that, they're also quite traumatic for us. They are the causes of trauma when we don't fully integrate what's happening for us. We can't fully open to the suffering that's happening to us. We become traumatized, and the suffering goes on and on and on. But if we can open to the suffering as we receive it, as difficult things happen for us, then we can really process fully and begin the work of letting go. And it's a pure and a directed and a focused way of practice, but it enables us to turn things around, let harm stop, not add to the suffering of this world, actually relieve the suffering of this world, heal the suffering of this world.